It started with a can of formula on a grocery store shelf, the kind of moment you'd walk right past if you weren't paying attention. I was in line at the checkout, eyes half on my phone, when I noticed this tall, worn-down guy in a frayed jacket staring at the price tag like it had personally betrayed him. In his cart sat a little girl in a stroller, cheeks pale, hugging an empty juice box. He lifted the can, held it a beat, then set it back like it burned. Pride is louder than hunger. You could feel it coming off him. I didn't know his name yet, Caleb Moore, but I knew that look. The "don't you dare pity me" look. I slipped around the aisle, grabbed the same formula from a different shelf, paid for it myself, and when he hit the register, I handed him the bag like it was no big deal. He stared at me, jaw tight. "I didn't ask for your help." I shrugged. "Kids gotta eat." He tried to hand it back. "This isn't pity," I said louder than I meant to. "It's called being human." That's when a voice slid in behind us, oily and amused. Well, well. The fallen genius and the maid who warned him. What a reunion. He was dressed like a Wall Street shark who'd lost his ocean slick hair, a blazer too expensive for this store. Trent Voss, Caleb's former partner, the man who'd gutted his company 2 years ago. He smirked at me, still playing savior. Some things never change. Caleb's fists balled, but he didn't speak. I stepped forward. "You wrecked his life and you're still here gloating." Trent leaned close enough for me to smell his cologne. He handed it to me. "And you warned him, and he still chose me over you." Then he shoulder-checked me as he walked out, knocking a can of soup to the floor. People gasped. Caleb caught my elbow before I fell. We stood there for a second in the noise of the store, me catching my breath, him staring at the door Trent had disappeared through. "Why are you doing this?" he asked finally. I looked at the little girl. "Because she deserves better than going to bed hungry," I said. That was the first crack in his wall. Next morning I was back in my own small kitchen making oatmeal when my phone buzzed. A text from his neighbor Caleb had no sitter and needed to run errands. Without thinking, I took his little girl Emma to the park. Fresh air beats 4 walls. When Caleb showed up, he looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. He asked me why I was still helping. I told him the truth. I used to clean his house. I'd warned him about Trent's offshore accounts and ghost contracts. He'd fired me for it. Now he was a single dad with no savings, no allies, and a daughter who still twirled like a princess, even though their castle had been sold at auction. That day on the park bench, he finally said it out loud. His wife left after the collapse, said she couldn't live with the whispers. He whispered it like a confession. I told him, "You can't give her everything right now, but you can give her food tonight. Start there." He stared at the bag of groceries in his hands, then at me. That was when the flicker of trust came back. Over the next few weeks, I brought breakfast, helped get Emma to preschool, and watched Caleb claw his way back toward dignity. He picked up small consulting work thanks to a contact I had. He started opening his laptop again instead of just staring at it. And the whole time, Trent Voss hovered like a ghost, emails bouncing, job offers, rescinded anonymous threats. One afternoon, Trent even rolled up in his black Mercedes outside Caleb's building, cigarette dangling like a trophy. "You should be scared," he hissed. "I took everything once, I'll do it again. The girl still sleeps with that stuffed rabbit, right?" Caleb's blood drained from his face. That was the moment he stopped pretending he could win alone. We went to a storage unit Caleb hadn't opened in 2 years. Inside, dusty boxes, old servers, file cabinets, his life before the fall stacked like forgotten luggage. We dragged out a desktop tower he'd used to back up internal footage before Trent forced everything to the cloud. And there it was. Video of Trent pacing a boardroom, talking about offshore accounts, laughing about Caleb being too busy playing family man to notice. I pushed him to track down his old auditor, Will Jensen, now teaching at a community college. Will looked like he'd been drying on the line too long, but he still had sharp eyes. I suspected fraud, he admitted. I kept copies. He handed Caleb a folder thick with emails, invoices, and routing slips. When we matched it to my own notes on Trent's shell companies, the pattern was undeniable. We took it to a journalist I trusted. The article hit like a thunderclap, headline after headline, exposing Trent's empire of fraud. And then came the knock from the feds. Assistant U.S. Attorney Regina Cole looked Caleb straight in the eye. "We're opening a federal investigation, but understand he'll hit back." She moved us into a safe house, me, Caleb, Emma. Beige curtains, lemon cleaner smell marshals parked discreetly outside. We mirrored the evidence on encrypted drives, hid backups in separate places. Still, the pressure campaign started. Bots and fake blogs smeared me as a liar, a thief, Caleb as unstable. One night, I got a Polaroid of Emma at the park, red ink scrawled on the back. "Stay quiet or she disappears." I stared at it for a long time, then realized the balloon in her hand was from 2 weeks ago. They'd staged the threat. But threats can turn real. Not long after Emma vanished from her room, a grainy video text showed her being shoved into an SUV. Caleb went pale, called Regina, but we didn't wait. Using city cams patched into my tablet, I spotted the vehicle near an old pier. We barreled through the city in his beat-up sedan, hearts hammering. Inside a warehouse, dust and broken windows, Emma tied to a chair but unharmed. I cut the rope. Caleb pulled the gag. She threw herself into our arms, sobbing. Marshals swarmed seconds later. Trent's fixer's fingerprints were everywhere. The next morning, Trent walked into court looking like a man who'd swallowed glass. The prosecution unveiled new evidence, child endangerment stacked on top of racketeering. I took the stand first. The defense tried to paint me as a bitter ex-employee, but when they asked why I'd come forward now, I looked at the jury and said, "Because I saw a little girl's name being used as a shield for men hiding behind paper and profit. Someone had to say enough." Caleb testified, next voice raw but steady. He admitted his arrogance, his blindness, and how he'd let people like me get erased. Then he told the jury about Emma's forged CEO papers. The trial moved like a storm gathering. We found Clara Raines, another former housekeeper who'd kept meticulous logs of Trent's midnight visit server access Sparrow protocol, ghost approvals. We flipped Trent's driver, Jonah, who led the feds to a secret server hub packed with transaction logs. Piece by piece, the fortress cracked. And yet Trent still tried to spin it, anonymous articles, TV pundits calling us pawns, whispers about my past jobs. So I recorded my own video, no makeup, no script, sitting at my kitchen table in the safe house. "I used to clean their floors," I said. I warned him. "I got fired. I'm still here. And you can't erase the people who pay attention." That video went viral overnight. People started sending tips support their own stories of being silenced. By the time the verdict came down, the city felt like it was holding its breath. Fog hung over the courthouse steps, reporters clutching microphones like lifelines. Inside, the jury filed in. The forewoman stood, guilty on all counts. Wire fraud, securities fraud, obstruction of justice, endangering a minor. I exhaled a breath I'd been holding for 2 years. Caleb squeezed my hand under the table. Across the aisle, Trent Voss went pale as marshals snapped handcuffs over his wrists. Outside the courthouse, reporters shouted over each other. I turned, once looked at the cameras, and said, "Justice isn't a single moment. It's what you build from the ashes." Caleb added, "I'm not rebuilding a company. I'm rebuilding my life, one honest brick at a time." That night, Emma twirled in her blue dress on the safe house floor. "The truth won, right?" she asked. "It sure did, baby," I said. Months later, the real ending wasn't a courtroom or a headline. It was a small community center in Newark, a ribbon cutting for the Sparrow Fund. a foundation Caleb and I started for whistleblowers and workers who speak up. The plaque read, "For those who tell the truth when no one's listening, you are not alone." And somewhere far away in a federal cell, Trent Voss sat forgotten. His name no longer opened doors, but the names he tried to erase, mine, Caleb's, Clara's, Jonah's, were etched into something he couldn't touch. That's the story. A maid who wouldn't stay silent, a man who lost everything and found his backbone, a child who deserved better than a forged signature on a shell company. We didn't do it because we're saints. We did it because we were tired of being afraid. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever seen someone try to silence the truth because they held the power and thought they could get away with it? Do you think pride keeps more kids hungry than poverty does? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell us where you're watching from, and if you believe courage matters more than status. Right, I stand with the truth. Let's talk about what real justice looks like, because it starts with conversations like this one.